It's time to practice my best William Shakespeare-esque voice. Forward, I pray, since we have come so far, and bid moon or sun or what you please, and if you please to call it a rush candle, henceforth I vow it shall be so for me. And I'm sure that's what Aaron Lewis wasn't thinking as he bore down on goal against Shrewsbury as he helped Mansfield tame the Shrews, aka the taming of the Shrews. Tedious, I know. Play the jingle. I really need to stop writing those about 2 seconds before we start, don't I? After Mansfield Town beat Shrewsbury Town by 2-1 on Saturday, their good run continued at home. But will they do it away from home as they go to an old foe, friend, whatever you want to call them, Northampton? Or will it be a load of cobblers? As always, we want to hear your views on the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield Matters, where tonight we'll actually figure out what the actual cost of promotion is. Come on and enjoy the show. Get involved throughout. This is the Mansfield Matters Podcast, and this is Taming of the Shrews. Yes, I know it was awfully tedious. I do apologise. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Mansfield Matters Podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. My name's Craig Priest, and joining me tonight, well, we have continued the Nigel Clough theme of having to put square pegs in round holes because we have nobody available to join us on the podcast tonight. Of course, we can always rely on Mr. Dependable Alan Wilson. Good evening, Al.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, Craig.
And, you know, we thought we needed to get an exchange in. So what we've done is we've exchanged Cam, we've exchanged Nick, we've exchanged Jim, and partly Clive, who'll be joining us later, for the reigning podcast predictions champion, Craig, a.k.a. Fathead. How are you, my friend? Great to have you back.
Yeah, evening, Craig, evening, Alan, evening, everyone. Yeah, great to be back. Looking forward to tonight and to discuss more about Mansfield. So thank you for having me.
Well, thanks so much for coming on and joining us at the last minute in an exchange. Clive will be popping on later on. First and foremost, how are you finding things this season? It's the first chance we've had to really catch up with you since we sort of saw you last towards the back end of last season. In fact, it might well have been the almost the last podcast of last season, really. So how are you finding things, and how's life in League One through the eyes of the podcast predictions champion?
Yeah, well, I think we'll part podcast predictions, Craig, because I've not got off to a great start this season. So I don't think I'll be...
how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of Mansfield Town, I mean, sitting in 8th place, 11 points, 3 wins, 2 draws, and and a loss. I think, all of us would have taken that, before the start of the season. So, really positive start, and long may it continue. Got a tough and busy October, and I think we'll just see how that goes. But really positive and really enjoy.
I was invited on to Northampton's fantastic "It's All Cobblers to Me" podcast yesterday for their preview show, and they were saying that they were a little bit surprised at how well Mansfield had started. Would you share a similar view? Did you expect it to be tougher than what it's been so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, that, Craig, isn't it? I think we've probably done better than what I expected. I thought it was going to be a little bit tougher. I think the league is tough. Let's be honest, but we've managed to get through the last two games. We've carved out two really good wins. That's really put us in good stead. For the start of the season, and again, long may it continue. But I think things are going to get tougher. You look at the fixtures coming up. There's a couple of games that you think, oh, well, we might be able to get a win, but we've got some real tough games ahead of us. So I think October will be pivotal, and see how we come out the back end of October, going into November. I think that'll be a real test to see where we finish, where we lie in the next sort of 4 weeks.
Alan, let's turn our attention a little bit to Saturday then. A 2-1 win over Shrewsbury, a team we mentioned last week who had a bit of a tough start and struggled, but for the first 30 minutes you'd be excused for thinking that Shrewsbury Town were prime Barcelona, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm going to say, well, I think to a certain extent we made them look like that as well. I mean, although they played some good football, I'm not disputing that fact, but we were, akin to his own downfall yet again after just under 2 minutes. But they fought back well. But yeah, Shrewsbury, I'm going to say they played good football. It's the same as Cambridge. Cambridge played some good football as well. And like Craig says, there are some good teams in League One. We've took that step up. But like I said a few weeks ago, let's see where we are after 10 games. I think that will be the block that you look forward to, and I think 10 games are done because we've got a few awkward ones, haven't we? 2 away matches coming up, and they're not going to be easy. But if we can get a few points on the board, like we have done, after 10 games, I think we could be set fair.
What have you made of how we've played so far, Craig? Because like Alan says, we made Shrewsbury look good for 30 minutes. We've been poor against teams sometimes as well. We've been very vulnerable at the back. What have you made of us generally?
I think first and foremost, the injuries haven't helped, have they? Let's be honest. That we've got players out that we really, really could do with being back fit, being back in the team. However, what I would say is if you think about Aidan Flint, we've lost Flint, but actually we've still managed to come through with a couple of wins. I think what I have seen is the team and that camaraderie that's followed on from last season. Even though we've brought new players in, actually the team are all together, and I think that's what's really got us through, the team playing. However, what we can't get away from is we've made some silly, sloppy mistakes. Dare I say it, the Lincoln game, and don't want to go over the Lincoln game, but we played really well. We played really well, good football, but actually it was the mistakes that let us down. But overall, it's a great start to the season. We've seen some really good football. We've seen some poor start to games. Alan's just mentioned that. But I think we'll learn. I think we'll learn quickly. Cloughie, said in his interview, very similar, didn't he? Around, he doesn't want to rewatch that first half an hour from the Shrewsbury game. But actually, the team will learn. They'll learn going forward, and I think it'll make us stronger.
And in terms of Saturday, Alan, as well, Nigel Clough said after the game that he felt we improved when we made that tactical change and went to 5 at the back, and he was very frustrated actually that he couldn't start with it. It sounded from like what he said, Al, that he very much wanted to start that with Jordan Barry at the right of the 3 centre back pairing with Elliot Hewitt at right wing back. But again, it's the I word, isn't it? Injuries.
Yeah, it's just a shame, isn't it? But, horses for courses. I mean, the rest of Macca really shouldn't have played. He said about Hewitt was carrying, although he got through 90 minutes, he's not quite sure how he did it. But, I can understand what he says, and it is good when you've got the chance to do a different formation, albeit, with square pegs in round holes, like you said before. But like we've stated quite a few times between us, whether it's been on the podcast or whether we've been talking privately, when the players start coming back, it's going to be really interesting, because you'd expect somebody to get a good hiding, but it's not always like that, is it? We've struggled and we've managed to come through. And like Craig says, it's that camaraderie. We must have one of the best dressing rooms, we've ever had.
There's certainly something in there, isn't there, Craig, which Nigel seems to get out of the players. Everyone that's come in has sort of adopted that attitude. And we have just gone on this continuous almost avalanche down a massive mountain and just picked up speed and picked up momentum along the way, no matter who we've drawn in at what point.
Yeah, that and you can't take away, can you? You look towards Leicester in the Premier League. I know it's a few seasons away, but what won them the Premier League was the team and that togetherness. Fighting for each other, backing each other up, and that won them the Premier League. And I know we're miles away from the Premier League, but actually you can start seeing some of those similarities with Mansfield. And look at last season, the team were so much together, and that's what really got us into not winning League Two, but getting us up from League Two into League One, and now that's continued. We brought players in, but it's not changed anything. We're still as tight as we were last season, and I think that's what's really helped us with a good start to the season.
Keep your comments coming in. Have your say on your team, like Simon's done tonight, who says, agree that team spirit is grinding out results. The experience of Gregory has been the difference. You're nodding away to that, Craig. What have you made of Lee Gregory so far? Alan and I have talked about him to death, so it'd be interesting to get your viewpoint on the man who has almost come full circle now.
Yeah, where do we start? I mean, look, we tried to get him, didn't we, last season? We didn't manage it, and I think when we eventually put pen to paper, I think every Mansfield fan must have been ecstatic to get a player that's got the experience and can score goals. And wow, it's played out, hasn't it, this season? I think what he brings. You watch him off the ball. He can read the game really well. He's got the experience. He brings the team together. Very much like Quinn, actually. You can see how he's supporting everyone. I think my only worry with like anything is when we talk about injuries. If we lost Gregory, I think we for a few weeks on injury, we'd all start worrying. But I think he keeps himself fit. He's doing a great job, and long may it continue. And I think Craig, thinking longer term, hopefully we can, because he's only got a short deal, hasn't he? I think from what I remember. So it's around looking a bit forward to next season as well, and can we keep him? And I know it's looking a bit too far ahead, but I think we need to.
And I think he showed that on Saturday again, didn't he, Alan? About his quality. He got into good positions, did really well to win the penalty, and dispatched it expertly. And I've got a feeling that you're going to be saying that phrase, goal scorer for the Stags, Mansfield Town's number 19, Lee Gregory, quite a lot this season.
I certainly hope so.
Well, you've already started to sort of elongate it a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, 25 to 30 times would be very nice. Why not be greedy?
You wrote 16 on the board, so...
I did, 16. Yeah. That was a bit lapse on my part, but, things can change. Will Evans might come good. Who knows, because he's not firing on cylinders yet, but he's doing his work for the team. But Gregory, it's another level. It really is. He brings the play. He leads the line well. He runs into space. You just can't fault the bloke, and 36, he's as fit as a butcher's dog.
Yeah, he certainly is, and continues to do it for us week in, week out, which is exactly what we want, especially at this level. We need that little bit of experience. He's one of the faces that we brought in on in the summer, Craig. What about the others? Who's impressed you so far of those that we added to the squads during the close season?
Yeah, well, I think you've already mentioned Evans. I think what Evan brings. We got him from Newport, and he's not firing all cylinders. Like Alan said, but actually his work rate, his tracks back, the effort he puts in every game is incredible. And I think, the corner will turn for him. Things will just start clicking into place. He'll get a couple of goals. He'll get the confidence. And, we'll have two, goal scorers firing on all cylinders, and we'll be a force to reckon with. Certainly when we bring, the other players back, Maris, to support him and putting those balls through. So, certainly, Evans has impressed me. And people like Bacchus. I mean, Bacchus, he's like, I call him a little terrier. He's all over the, play for the winning goal on Saturday, reading the game well as we go forward through the season.
Yeah, and let's certainly hope so, because he played a superb ball through for Aaron Lewis. And let's talk a little bit about him, Alan, because obviously he was the one who was the man who was on the score sheet on Saturday to get that winning goal was Aaron Lewis. And, I feel quite sorry for him at times, because he's kept out of the side wrongly by Hiram Botan quite a lot of the time. He's never really chosen too much to start, but when he does sort of impact, he impacts it really, really well. And arguably on Saturday came on in almost a weird position on the left-hand side rather than on the right-hand side, but timed his run expertly, kept his composure, and tucked it away nicely.
I just thought I mentioned it to Kieran, the son-in-law, who was standing at the side of me. When he came on, everything he touched was brilliant. Even for his first touch, first 10 minutes or so, it was here, there and everywhere. And every pass that he did seemed to come off. And I said to Kieran straight away, I says, he's going to have the rest of a good game, that lad is today. And obviously when Bacchus put that sumptuous ball through, I think that's a good word to use, sumptuous ball through, he finished it with aplomb, didn't he? And I really pleased for him, because he's a really nice chap. Really, really nice.
Oh, jolly good. Keep your comments coming in. Have your say on your team. We were talking a couple of minutes ago about those summer additions, Craig. And Thomas has said Deji Ojalaja. Let's get it right, Thomas. It's Dave. Has been a real find. I know he made the mistake for the goal at the weekend, but he's been unbelievable, holding the back line together whilst Flint and Kilgore recover. Think we might see him in an Ollie Clark role when everyone is fit, potentially. Potential cult hero in the making. And I'll just add on to the back of that as well, Craig, that, a lot of people see him playing centre-half and forget that he played predominantly as a 10 for Burton last season as well, which is remarkable.
Yeah, you're right, Craig. And I think, he's another player that actually can play in a number of positions. And, as we get players back, certainly Flint and Kilgore, having them as the, your two back centre backs, albeit if we're pushing him into that midfield place, can only be a real positive for us. And, we've yet to see him playing that. But I think, thinking about the midfield and, sometimes if we're honest, we're not as strong in that midfield. We can lose the ball from time to time, lose our way a little bit. And I think he will bring some real strength into that midfield if we get to that place, which I really hope we do. Because I think, as we start seeing that squad come back, we will have a real strong squad, going forward to the, not latter part, but, the next part of the season as we go into, November, December.
I think that's certainly been a key part of it, that adaptability that we've got. And he certainly fits that like a glove. As Marie says, liking Dave, yes, he's made a few mistakes, but I don't think we've missed Flint at the back. And I think that's a fair point, Alan, so far. I know it's been, pretty much 2 home games, and we've not, had come up against great opposition. No disrespect to those that we have played, but we haven't looked too out of place without it, and we've adapted really well. And what it has done, even though it's sort of left us a little bit short in some areas, it's made people sort of step up and be counted, and it's brought the best out of some players from all over the pitch. Who'd have thought Will Evans, obviously, he made the mistake in his interview, didn't he, of saying, I've played wing back before. Never say that in front of Nigel Clough. And Lewis Reedy's taken the armband as well. People have stepped up, and we've not missed Aidan Flint as much as I thought we would have done when it was announced he was injured.
I think we've said, all of us have said, I know I have, and I know I've heard Clive say it before, and I'm sure you have as well. It's like most other people just have got to step up. when they need to. Everybody knows that Flint, it didn't look fit to me when he was playing, especially against Lincoln, and the other time when he made the mistakes and he held his hand up and coming off the pitch and saying, it's my fault. It just didn't look 100% to me. But, people have stood up. We've got Hewitt back now, who's done his first 90 minutes, which is, incredible for how well he's been doing. And it's just looking good. I think Cargill deserves a mention as well at the side of Dave, because he's not gone unnoticed, that he hasn't. And he's getting stronger and better. And touchwood, he's keeping injury free, which is a really good sign.
Yeah, I think that's another thing to sort of add on the back of there, Craig, isn't it? I was just literally going to bring up Cargill before Alan said it. And, he's not really had too much of a pre-season. He's had to come in at the deep end almost and play with players he's not played with before, probably at a level that he's had a little bit of experience at, but not massively. And he's done superbly well, and it just shows what a good adaptable player he is, especially flitting between that back four and back three.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Craig. And I think, like say back end of last season, early this season, with the injury, not having the pre-season like everyone else, we probably expected a slow start, but I like Cargill. I like the back, and I think he's been really solid this season to start the season. So, again, we've not mentioned Cargill. There's lots of players we could mention, isn't there? I think all the team have had a really good start, and it's a real positive. Although we've got these injuries, I think if we can keep injury free and get some of these players back, we can have actually a strong squad, and I think we can hold our own in League One.
Let's stick on the topic of Bailey Cargill for a second, Alan, because I believe I'm right in thinking, if my memory doesn't fail me, that he was voted man of the match, wasn't he, on Saturday? Therefore, he was brought upstairs to be interviewed by a nice gentleman that I like to call Mr. Wilson.
Yeah.
And I believe that you did what true Mansfield Matters podcasters should do when presented with said opportunity, which is, of course, ask a certain question.
Yeah, I started off with Charlotte Henshaw because I was lucky enough to interview her, and it was the famous what's your favourite biscuit? And Charlotte, she looked amazed, bless her. She says, I don't know whether I might get hammered for this, she says, because it's not the sort of biscuit that everybody likes. And she went with Jammy Dodger. And you could see choice. People in the room, that some nodding, so I wanted to clap and whatever.
You lot, I mean, I have to hold my hands up with this as well, right? Nat gives me an earful for this all the time, because I used to say I'm never asking that question, but I asked it.
Yeah.
I asked it once, and it gets people talking, right? Yeah. I asked it. I was at a job interview once, true story, and at the end he said, "You got any questions for us?" I'm not really about the company or the salary. I know all that. Just what's your favourite biscuit? And it broke down barriers we had last. Yeah. And I'm not saying that got me employed, because obviously my talent got me employed. It didn't. It was the biscuit question, but it got people talking. And you know what? Every time I asked it, when I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity to, it always had the same reaction. That little bit of before it's this, and it gets people talking. It breaks the room. It's a conversation starter. It's great. So that's a great choice.
When Fraser Blake, I asked the same question to Fraser Blake Tracy.
Sorry, who?
He said, Tracy.
Thank you, Alan.
I asked the question, and he said he had to think about it for a second, and then he said chocolate caramel digestive, and that went down. It was like mediocre.
Yeah.
So we got to Bailey Cargill in the 1861 suite. Obviously, they'd already done it in the Kevin Bird suite. And I asked him the same question. He just come out straight away with it. Says chocolate hobnob, and he got a round of applause. That's a good biscuit. Isn't it incredible?
The only answer that gets a round of applause, and it's the bloody biscuit question.
Chocolate hobnob. So we'll see where it goes, and I'll start making a list of who's got what.
Do, because but don't tell us in the group chat. Save it for the part, and we will then guess who it is. Like I used to clip it out, didn't I? And play it. We'll try and do that every time you get the chance. Do it. So whilst we're on the subject, Craig, you might as well reveal it. You've obviously had digestive caramel chocolate from Tracy. You've had jammy dodger from Charlotte Henshaw, and you've had chocolate hobnob from Mr. Cargill. Rank those three from worst to best, and then tell us your favourite.
Well, probably the chocolate hobnob's got to be top, and then followed by the digestive caramel and chocolate would be
caramel digestive.
In that order. But I think I'll be a bit controversial now, Craig. So my favourite biscuit would be the fig roll.
Oh,
yeah. So a bit controversial, but yeah.
I like it. It's a good choice. See, God, we should start our own podcast, Alan. Biscuits matter. We just go up and down the country, right?
Yeah.
Just asking people at service stations or wherever, say, "Excuse me, mate, what's your favourite biscuit?" We'll just do that. So it'd be a great series. We should do it. There you go. Anyway, moving swiftly back on to all things on the pitch, shall we? Moving away from biscuits. Let's talk a little bit about shape, Craig, because Nigel Clough last season didn't particularly like to change too much. It was very much a flat back four, and then anything goes in front of that, normally a diamond. This season is alternated between the flat back four and a back five, so 3 centre-backs and wing-backs. And it is in the latter formation, which we tried years ago under him after the playoff season. It didn't work. It went terribly wrong, actually. This season, it's worked quite well. And actually, arguably, in my opinion, we've played our best football when in that particular formation. What's your viewpoint on it?
Yeah, I would agree, Craig. If we go back that couple of years when we tried five at the wasn't it? It didn't work. Letting the forwards through. But I think what this season's brought is like you say, that adaptability. Clough is not afraid to change it. Mid game, and the players get it. And it might be the change of players. How they do in the training and the drills and everything else. But what you can see straight away is the players get it. They know what position they're going to play. They can change it. Mid-game, even a couple of times if need be, and people are comfortable in those positions and know what their role is. So, it's clearly working. And I also agree with you, Craig. I quite like the three at the back and the two wing backs. It gives us something different, and it does help that midfield where sometimes we start losing that ball. But I don't mind that formation, and I think it does work.
I think both Thomas and Simon have got their comments spot on with what they've said in the comments. We'll come on to them in a second. I think for me, Alan, what I like about this particular system, especially the three centre-backs and then the wing-backs, is we've actually got wing-backs in wing-back positions, which we didn't particularly have when we tried it last time, which is why it didn't work. And we also had the other situation of square pegs, round holes, and the hangover from the playoffs and trying to be something we weren't. This particular system at this level is great for League One football because it nullifies the opposition. I mean, I think we've got better players to play it now. We didn't have Lewis Reed when we tried it last, and he's a real kingpin in it because what we do when we go to that back five, like Thomas says, we allow the wing backs to get forward. Macca and Hewitt in particular, when they're on their game, that suits them down to the ground, especially McLaughlin. But it allows us to just sort of drill down and sort of close things off. You look at actually, case in point, the winning goal on Saturday. They're coming at us. We get players behind the ball. We really compact in front of our own box and stop them from trying to play through. And we get players to really anchor down and break down those lines, intercept the ball. And then we have a whole pitch in front of us, which we just open up and flood and try and get those through balls going through. And Lewis Reed is a particular good addition to have in there because he'll sit in front of those three centre-backs and almost become a fourth centre-back when the wing-backs are going forward. Uncle Stephen and Hiram, they'll open up and create a bit of space. And then, Will Evans and Lee Gregory as well will create space. They'll come and receive the ball. They'll open pockets of space. And it just allows players to be a little bit more creative. And I think if we're to get to go to places and grind out results, I think we're probably better off, especially, Alan, in the hypothetical situation of having everybody back fit and available. I think a back five with wing backs will suit us a lot more. Imagine this now and try and not make your mouth water when I say it. A back three of Alfie Kilgore, Aidan Flint and Bailey Cargill with, Elliot Hewitt right wing back, Stephen McLaughlin left wing back, and then maybe Dave and Lewis Reed together in midfield. It's mouth-watering potential, isn't it?
And we've also got Tracy to come back who can play that as well. You know, when I was talking to him, he was saying that he enjoys playing left back. He was asked by Nigel when he came to be the left back. You know, that was going to be his position, although he does play centre-half as well, like he said. But I'd agree with Simon to a certain degree that it all depends who we've got, and it also depends on how the opposition are performing against us. Because, I mean, after first 30 minutes, I know we weren't that brilliant, but, I mean, they were coming through left, right and centre. So we had to change something. And, you know, it's like horses for courses, isn't it? 50-50. Sometimes we have to go with that because of how they're playing. And then sometimes, like Simon says, depending on who we've got, who's available to play, injuries accepted, you know, we have to play that way. And it's a good balance, I think, because like Nigel said in his interview, it can change it as and when.
Well, speaking of changing it as and when and availability, let's say hello and good evening to Clive, who's just popped up. Evening, Clive.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Great to have you with us. Did you meet Craig last time around, the reigning podcast predictions champ?
No, this is an honour.
Oh, there you go. Craig, Clive, Craig, there you go.
Let me finish. This is an absolute honour for Craig.
Absolutely, Clive. It's a total honour.
It's not very often you get to meet your heroes, is it, Craig?
Absolutely. You know, we were only just saying that, Clive, before you joined.
Yeah,
well, I think it's reasonable because Craig, the other Craig, is clearly he has his hero in Alan Wilson. So I felt a bit bereft. so I'm glad you're here.
God help us one day when someone cites Cam as their hero. I think then.
Well, Cam fulfills a very important role in Mansfield Matters. He makes everybody else feel superior.
The words there of Clive Parkin. We are talking Clive systems because before you joined us, we were talking about Nigel Clough switching between the three centre backs, aka a back five, and a flat back four, and sort of what suits us best. And we're talking hypothetical situations and things like that with everybody available. Having seen what you've seen so far and sort of bringing into consideration watching the highlights from Saturday and things like that, what system do you think suits us best thus far?
Well, I'm sure you've already said it. It depends what talent we've got available to us. The availability of players will determine the way we set up. And Clough hasn't got a great deal of choice at the moment. We're scratching around, aren't we? The real challenge will come when he's got a full panel of players to pick from. We'll then see what his preferred method is. And I think he in the past has been a bit too stubborn. I think this last season he's demonstrated a more flexible approach to changing shape, and I think by and large it's worked when he's done it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting one to think about. I'm going to pose this question to all of you as well. Hypothetical situation. Let's say we come back from the international break, if indeed we get one this time. Depends on who gets called up. There'll be some question. I think you need 3 to get a game called off, and we'll definitely have 2. The third one in Lucas Akins will be touch and go in terms of his injury because he's obviously out at the moment, isn't he? So we'll see if that actually goes ahead. But let's say, late mid-October, we have literally, for the first time ever, nobody in the treatment room. Absolutely nobody. Everybody's fit and available. What's your starting 11 and what system are you going to go for? So I'll let you ponder that for all of 1 minute whilst we take the briefest of breaks. You're back with the Mansfield Matters podcast, the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. Hope that you're keeping well. Before the break, we were asking our podcast panel tonight, which consists of Alan Wilson, Clive Parkin, who's just joined us, and the reigning podcast predictions champion, Craig, aka Fathead, to if they had every single player available to them and the treatment room was completely empty, what their preferred starting 11 would be and in what system. So, Alan, I'm going to come to you first. What would your preferred system be? Would it be the back five or the back four? And what would the 11 be?
I would play a back five, and I would put. It's very awkward, isn't it? Because I mean, down here, I've just jotted a few names down, and there's no place for Akins, there's no place for Bacchus, there's no place, for quite a few of them. So it would be really, really interesting. I just picked 11 players that I thought could do a job on the day: Pym, Hewitt, Cargill, Macca, Kilgore, Dave, Maris, Lee, Will, Evans, and Reid. Now, that's that's a decent team, but there's Uncle Stephen. There's no Hiram. It's going to be really interesting. And it's horses for courses. Like we said, that's what the squad's for. But, different.
Clive, what about you? What would you be going with and who?
I'm a bit like Alan. I think if we've got fit and available wing backs, we should play three and make it a much broader, wider pitch and do what we've done on occasions in the past. That relies on the midfield being tight and in control. But I think we've got the capacity to do that, especially when Maris is back. But I think the beauty of having the squad we've got is, provided they're not all injured, we can set up as a 4 and do it quite well. We can set up as a 3 or 3/5 and set up and perform quite well. And we've proved in the last few weeks we can manage with the right cobbled together setup because the players have put their effort in. But they can only take that so far into this division, I think. So we do need to get these players back, and we do need these players coming back to be at the form levels that they once had. And there's no guarantee of that, of course, but that's what we're looking for. Because
Craig,
otherwise, we're going to have to do some recruitment in January.
That's very true. Craig, you've had a couple of minutes to think about it now. I've brought you some time.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. I mean, mine's pretty similar, to be fair. Cargill, you're playing the back three, apart from Pym in goal. Cargill, Flint, and Kilgore. I've got Macca and I've gone blank now.
Hewitt.
Sorry, Hewitt. That was it, Hewitt. And then Dave, Reid, and Quinn, and Maris in midfield. Gregory and Evans up front. So, but I think, like Clive said, this is a real dilemma, isn't it? If everyone was fit, there's a choice of players, and it's hard to leave players out. But it goes back to what you said, Craig, wasn't it, earlier around we can change and flex the system, and change things that will bring people off the bench. So, everyone fit, we've got a real, I think, a real, strong team.
Yeah, I can't look beyond what people have said and suggested so far. Really, for me, it's obviously Christy Pym in goal. The three centre backs: Kilgore, Flint, and Cargill. Hewitt right wing back, Fraser Blake, Tracy as a left wing back, leaving out Stephen McLaughlin there. Holding midfielders of Dave and Reid, with Maris in behind Gregory and Evans, and can very easily become a 4, a flat back 4 and a 4 across midfield, or a 5 across midfield, or whatever. So the flexibility is there. I just wouldn't like to be Nigel Clough. But what it does do, Clive, actually alleviates some of the thought processes that we've had, and that is that we might not have the squad that's good enough. What it actually proves is when everybody's fit and available, we've got so many choices. We can adapt to almost any situation. And even when we've got a few players missing, we've got players who can play in different positions and fill in and still do a job. And I think very few squads in this division can boast a roster that's as capable of doing that to the level that we can do it in terms of consistency.
We've said this all season. We're mightily impressed by the pool of talent that we've acquired. The only downside to all this, and it's still the downside and will continue to be the downside for reasons I don't fully understand, is the woeful number of injuries and severe injuries that we seem to clock up. Now, 1 or 2 you're going to get because that's just luck of the draw, but I don't know. I think somebody up at the training ground is poisoning people and stabbing them and stuff.
You can't say things like that.
Because they all recovered from their orthopaedic lament. I think they would poison the food.
Well, there you go.
One interesting thing, Craig, sorry to interrupt. One interesting thing, you could pick a team and a bench and still not have our 3 international players on the bench, theoretically, which is unbelievable, really.
Which means that we shouldn't really take part in a cancelled fixture because of the international break.
Well, we might not get a chance if Lucas.
Well,
I'm sure if he's fit, they'll want Lucas, definitely, won't they? Because I mean, he's got 2 in 2.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you'd
What
probably
I'm
want
saying
him
is, if
unfit.
we had a full selection opportunity, then we wouldn't miss it. Those 3 players not being available to us, would we? And yet we would still be entitled to call the fixture back.
yeah. Well, rules are rules. People have done it against us, Clive. So
All I know is I bought a ticket for Wickham for a Saturday, and it's now
I know.
an undecided Tuesday. I bought a ticket for Exeter, and that's likely to be an undetermined Tuesday. I don't like it.
No,
Get
I'm
your
sitting
money
on the
back.
fence. I'm sitting on the fence so far with the Exeter one. It's like I say, I'm down there that week, but don't want to gamble and get a ticket if it means I'm going to have to go there on a bloody Tuesday night. Because it's just a no, isn't it? It's just a no. Or you're not getting back until.
Well, it's all right when
7
you're
in the morning.
retired, you know, Craig. You can spend all day getting down there, you know, get drunk in the pub and stop overnight, you know.
Well, there you go. Right, let's move on to other matters, shall we? Let's talk off the pitch, because if I were to ask you what the price of promotion is, you know, up until a couple of days ago, you wouldn't have had an answer, Craig, but now the answer is very much £10,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, I'd forgot about this, and you know, we knew something was probably coming, and I think, you know, they've got to do something, haven't they? You know, not doing anything was never an option. So, yeah, I think we just take the £10,000. It's a shame that we Craig, the player we sold to Barnsley, done. We've got Keeler done, but it's a shame. But we'll get on with it, take it on the chin, and move forward.
I think one thing we can say for sure, though, Clive, is that it's almost loose change. It could have been a lot worse, but there could be further sanctions further down the line, which is the more worrying factor.
Yeah, the £10,000 neither here nor there. It's the damage to our reputation and the belief or lack of belief in our club's ability to respond to circumstances such as took place last season. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The club did nothing, from what I could see, more for that game against Accrington than they do normally. And everybody knew you'd have to be absolutely dead from the ankles up not to realise there's going to be an invasion at some point. And much as people respect Alan, when he's saying, please don't go on the pitch, they're not going to listen to him. And it doesn't help when the PA system doesn't work properly anyway. But I mean, the reality is there were lots of people from the Q block wanted to invade the pitch. Now, there's every way of keeping them up there because there's gates at the bottom. Now, somebody took the decision it's better to open the gates and let them through than to have them in the cages at the bottom playing havoc. Now, they may or may not be the case. But if you've taken that decision, then you have to all at the same time take a decision how you're going to keep them on the right side of the barrier until the whistle's blown. And the stewarding was completely ineffective, as it tends to be anyway. And I just don't know. I only hope that other clubs that got promoted who had incursions are being treated in the same way. I just think Mansfield is probably one of those whipping sticks out there that lots of people love to have a go at. And I you know, if Wrexham had done it, would they have been punished? I don't know.
No, Ryan Reynolds would have just dug that out of his pocket, wouldn't it? Or pulled it out from behind his ear or something and gone, there you go, have that and we'll get it in the documentary. But it's frustrating, Alan, more than anything, because, you know, it puts a little bit of a dampener on what happened and us getting promotion. But at the end of the day, I think the club actually, the stewards and the safety guys that night made every correct decision when you think back, because like Clive alluded to, fans came down in their droves from Q Block and from other places in the upper tier as well, not just Q Blocks, not just at tar them with a brush. Lots of people made their way down from upstairs, and if you keep the gates closed and locked, frustration, passion, alcohol to all take effect, and it can become a bit of a boiling pot very, very quickly. So the safest thing to do was to open the gates, but and that's probably how we ended up with more of the volume of people on the pitch than what was particularly intended. And I think that the saving grace from it all, Alan, is the fact that the following game, the Saturday, when fans were told to stay off the pitch, not one single spectator entered the field of play, because if they had, further sanctions could have been made. And you never know what the EFL is like. We could have very quickly found ourselves back in League Two. You know what they're like. You never write anything off.
It's like Clive said. I've just got two or three things to say about it. It's like Clive said. I just hope other clubs get the same, punishment as what Mansfield have got. The second thing, I'm no killjoy for people going on the pitch when we've got promotion and whatever. But, I tried to do my job. I was asked to do a job. I tried to do it to the best of my ability. Whether it worked or not, obviously, everybody saw that it didn't. But the third thing was, and I think the most overriding thing, in my opinion, was when they were close to the corner flag, when the gentlemen were trying to take that corner with a minute to go. And that's when the referee blew his whistle, didn't he? There was a minute left on the clock. And, he could see what were going off. And they were too close to where he was taking the corner. I think that was the crux of the matter, where the big problem lay. Not with the people. I mean, it's like Klaus said, everybody knew that they were going to go on. But it's just, if
they'd all come on the pitch after the game had finished, I don't think this fine would have occurred.
Probably not.
It's the fact the referee had to have a situation whilst the game was in play that he had to deal with. And therefore he had to raise a report. But, what makes me rather uncomfortable is the amount of energy and money that has been poured into a QC and his many members of staff to write a 79-page report on this incident. Didn't need that. EFL could have said, look, you're out of order, here's your 10 grand fine. It just seems to me that there's jobs for the boys coming out of the EFL and the FA, and as football clubs at our level, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's all politics.
And we don't have the clout that some clubs have. That's the other thing. I mean, we mentioned Wrexham. I'm being slightly flippant, but it's the same with the points deductions from the Premiership clubs. The likes of Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Nottingham Forest, etc. They've had their fines thrown at them straight away, their points deductions. And Manchester City, who on the face of it seem to be more guilty than anybody, are likely to get away with it.
Now, I have seen, there is one thing I want to raise, and I don't want to be a killjoy towards people that have put this together. I get where it's come from, but someone out there, I don't know if anyone's seen it, has made a GoFundMe page to try and recoup the cost of this. And I just, I get the heart in it, Craig. I get the thought process of it, but they don't need to do that. And there's not really any notice of where that money's going to go to. And because people have donated to it already, my message would be, if you want to support it, but actually give money to a charity, give it to the community trust or something, and let them invest it in the club and in doing, putting groups on and things like that and making a difference within the community, because the club will have already paid it and it will be loose change. So what's your thought process on those who have made a GoFundMe? Because Alan Wilson needs a new PA system. So, if we do raise enough money, why not, give it in a brown envelope to Al?
Can you get a sound system for 28 quid?
I doubt it.
Yeah.
I think it's understandable, because it's an emotional reaction from a fan to want to help its club. I understand that. It's complete nonsense in my book. The culpability lies with the club. The club can afford £10,000, I'm sure. The SSA could throw some money in. They seem to have a fairly large reserve of money, which has been generated by fans already. So I think there are options out there that don't involve a GoFundMe page. And the last time there was a GoFundMe at the football club, it left a bit of a bitter taste in people's mouths because of the way that they couldn't see. There was no transparency around what happened to the money. I know that was nothing to do with the football club, but it's the same logic. On the same vein, I noticed Wimbledon have now got over £100,000 on their official GoFundMe site. Because you could see there that the problem they've got in Wimbledon is not of their own making. You could argue it's just an act of God. They could have done nothing about that. And a small club like Wimbledon, like Mansfield, would find it very, very painful to have to do the repairs to the pitch that they've got to do. So on that basis, I'm not dismissive of that one, but that's because I'm an old grump.
Now, I just want to clear something up as well here and give solely my opinion on this as well. I have just seen someone mention in the comments that the SSA have a sponsored page to recoup the cost, and I've just gone on their page to have a look at it, and they have indeed set up a donations page. So this is actually separate to the one which I'd seen, which I saw on X, formerly known as Twitter. And the SSA post says, following the news on Mansfield.net that Mansfield Town FC have been fined £10,000, some fans have approached the SSA saying they want to contribute towards this fine and asking for a trusted way to do so. SSA therefore have set up an entirely voluntary way for any fans, individuals, companies, organisations to do so if they wish. The link to donate is below on the page, and you can pick your donation amount. However, SSA have set this up purely as a trusted collection tool on fan request, and would like to make it perfectly clear that the below headline form, SSA will not be debating the rights and wrongs of this situation and are purely offering a trusted collection option for anyone who wishes to donate upon fan request. No existing SSA funds will be used in any donation for this purpose. All funds received by the SSA via the online method above for this sole purpose will be donated to Mansfield Town FC via cheque on the 1st of November 2024. Well, I hope that's true, and I hope that after the 1st of November, that page link is taken down, and also there might be potential charges on that page as well for setting it up. But I just think if any supporter wants to do it or donate, the club will pick up the fine themselves, and I think they should issue a statement of that effect. I think this is where I'm not sort of saying that this should happen, but this is where the owners probably should come out and put a little bit of a response to this club statement and say, look, do not give us any money. It's all sorted. It's all done. If you have donated any money already to X, Y, and Z link, please, we will ensure this goes into the community trust or a charity or whatever, because the supporters already pay hard-earned money. And what I don't want, Alan, is a situation where supporters are going, if you donated to this, oh, you're not a true fan. Do you know what I mean? Where it all becomes a little bit tetchy and argumental, like Clive referenced earlier, the whole drum situation. It's a club fine. The club will pay it. We don't need to. It's not the fans' fault.
It's one of them situations, Craig, I'm going to say Clive. It's one of them situations, Craig, where people will and people won't. At the end of the day, it's up to each individual. But I applaud SSA for doing that, because then it will go into that, pot, whatever they call it, and give it as a whole donation. And if everybody who wants to does go with the SSA, that, in my opinion, that's fair comment.
I think if you're going to have a voluntary just giving page set up, it's much better that the SSA should do it than one individual fan setting it up for whatever motivation. I think the SSA is better equipped to deal with it.
I would agree.
And there's no reason to believe they would do anything other than make sure that the maximum amount went to the club.
Or,
Craig's right. I think that the club should say, look, thanks for the gesture, everybody, but I'd rather you put it into one of the charitable trusts that the club's involved with. That would be my view, and I think that would be the right PR and PA. And I think that's something that perhaps the SSA and the club can discuss.
Right. Let's move.
They have dialogue, so there's no reason why they can't.
Let's move swiftly on and look ahead to what was referenced earlier, Craig, as a busy October. I'm just looking at the fixtures now. Crawley away on the 1st of October. No one's really. Anyone going to go to Crawley on a Tuesday night? Under a new manager as well. I think they'll. I don't know if they've appointed anyone yet. Of course, he's left to go to Milton Keynes, hasn't he? Blackpool on the 5th of October at home. Exeter City, of course, 12th of October away from home, which could be off due to international call-ups. Stevenage on the 19th at home, and then Tuesday, the 22nd of October, a trip to Wigan Athletic, followed by a home game with Birmingham City on the 26th of October, and then finishing the month off the final pointless Bristol Street Motors game, as we're already out of the competition, against Newcastle under-21s. A busy month ahead, Craig, but this could be a pivotal month, not only in terms of taking on teams that we should be beating, but also testing ourselves against more quality opposition, but also a key month for bringing certain players back into the fold.
Yeah, absolutely, Craig. There's so much riding, I guess, on October. Bringing some of these players back. We know, some of them started training. Really positive. I've heard from Clough, and it's going to be the back end of October when we really see these probably. But teams that you mentioned, you look at some and think, we've got a chance against those, and others will be tough. Blackpool, they're ninth, aren't they, at the moment, and that's going to be a tough one, albeit it is at home. Whereas we've got Crawley there 18th. You just can't tell, can you? You can't predict a win, you can't predict a draw. And I think, what we've talked about already tonight is that team ethic, that team coming together. And, I'd like to think that, at those games in October, all right, take away the Exeter one, whether it's on or off. I think if we can, get somewhere near 9 points, that would be a really good October for us. Will keep us, in that mid-table position.
One thing we did reference earlier, Alan, was the fact that we will reach at some point, during this month, that 10-game marker as a mark of where we are in the league. And realistically, I think at the end of it, there's two or three key tests in there, but it's another month where we can really dig our heels in and really show what we're about. And if we can, like Craig says, if we can get some bodies back at the end of that month as well, it puts us in a really strong position going into November and December.
It would be really nice, Craig, to look on the bright side and say we'd stay undefeated. I know we've had one defeat, but with the the games that we've played since then, stay undefeated, either wins or draws. Just keep that little bit of a momentum going, and then when we start getting the squad players back, we can move on a little bit and start firing again. But I don't see any problems anywhere. I really don't, because I think they'll knuckle down and do what they need to do to grind the results out.
And it all starts, Clive, on Saturday as we head for Northampton again. Rumour has it Nigel Clough's been on the phone to John Joe O'Toole and Kieran Wallace for a one-game comeback to play in that defensive midfield duo, which they did so superbly well in the playoff semi-final.
I thought you when you mentioned that.
I know, I love that game. But Northampton are a club very similar to ourselves. They've had a manager in John Brady they've had for a long time now. They've built and built and built. They're a very similar club to ours. Always enjoy a nice little trip to Northampton as well. But we need to be going there and trying to continue our rich vein of form, because we've had, I wouldn't say we've had it easy the last two games, but we've certainly had it more in our favour. We've been at home. We've been against teams that have been down there, whereas Northampton, they're just below us. We're on their turf. We've got to go away from home for the first time in a while. It'll be a big test for us, won't it?
It's difficult to know whether the players play with more freedom away from home than they do at home, because sometimes there's more pressure when you're in front of your own fans. But let's be clear about it. We've beat two teams in the last two home games who are bottom of the league, and we've done it by riding our luck a little bit. And that's not going to happen forever. And we're going to come up against teams that are better equipped than the teams we've played the last two home games. I think Northampton will be the first one of those, because they are where they are in this league on merit. They got promoted a couple of seasons ago and they did well last year. They've been safely ensconced in the middle of the park. And I think we are going to have to be better than we've been in the last two games to come away with the points at Northampton.
Yeah.
Well, let's find out what everybody thinks, or how everybody thinks we're going to do as we play. So, can you be the master or an embarrassing disaster? In this guessing game, there's a simple aim. It's outguess the rest and be the best. Win, lose or draw. Do you know the score? Who will be your hero to make sure you don't score zero? Yes, it may be fiction, but this is Podcast Predictions. I really need to get back in the edit of that and turn it up. It's gone really low in the last couple of weeks. I don't
I
know
thought I'd gone
why.
deaf.
No, well, there you go. It hasn't. It'll be back to normal service next week. Anyway, let's do this. Obviously, we've got Craig, who's the reigning podcast predictions champion with us. But is he the current leader of the pack, or is it somebody else? Neither. Currently, the leader is Steve Nadin, who is ahead on 82 points at the moment.
Well done, Steve.
I'm in third place on 72, and the reigning champion is all the way down in 10th on 51 points so far. We'll have the full table for you in next week's show after this this latest round of fixtures. But first and foremost, Craig, what have you made of the slight rule change this year in terms of rather than picking a man of the match, you pick a player who can score you some extra points? Again, brought in by Ben, who's the podcast predictions guru, who is on level points with yourself at the moment. What have you made of that change? Because it's not fared you well so far, has it?
No, I'm not keen on it, Craig. If I'm honest, it's harder to keep track of, understand how you might have done, the day after. But it's a game. We'll see how I do. But yeah, it's not wouldn't be my choice, if I'm honest.
I mean, people are sort of saying that I've had influence on this because I've seemed to have done very well out of it. I mean, I haven't. I've just continued doing what I do each week, which is putting in a prediction. It is as it is. But all the rules and all the points and how it's scored are on the link page. Link, of course, being in the description. Clive was absolutely befuddled by it all when we were reading it out on the first show. But there you go. It's not hard to confuse Clive sometimes, is it? So there you go. Right. Let's turn our attention to Saturday's game then, away at Northampton, and get some predictions in. So first and foremost, let's start with the reigning champion, who must tell us, will Mansfield win, lose, or draw?
So I think it's going to be a bit tough on Saturday, so I'm going for a draw, Craig.
And what will be the score?
So it'll be 1-1.
And who will be your hero to make sure you don't score 0?
And I think Gregory will step up again and put in the goal for us.
There you go. Clive, over to you.
Well, I was going to do exactly the same, so I'm not. I think we're going to lose.
Yep.
And the score will be 2-1 to Northampton.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go for Reed.
Okay, Alan Wilson.
I think we will win 2-1.
Yep.
Lee Gregory.
Okay. I'm going to go with what I said on the Northampton preview podcast. We're yet to keep a clean sheet, so we won't do that. But I think we are going to win. I think we're going to win 3-1.
Oh.
And I am going to choose, as the person to make sure I don't score 0, I am going to go with... I'm going to go Gregors as well. Can't not. He's bound to pop up with a goal, isn't he? So I'm going to go Lee Gregory. The link that you need if you want to take part in podcast predictions is in the description. A reminder that you must submit your guess no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff. Craig, you don't need to worry about doing yours this week. I'll put yours in as soon as you've said it on the show.
Thank you very much.
And of course, we will reveal the table at the end of September on next week's podcast. Who will be in the lead? Will Fathead have a massive resurgence? It could happen. Could all change with players who can accumulate score after score after score. It's the beauty of podcast predictions. Podcast predictions. Podcast predictions.
So slick.
Predictions. It's like I've done it before, Clive, isn't it? And do you know what else is slick? What's that I can hear? What is it? Oh, it's the random game generator firing up.
Content loading. Selecting game. Game selected. Players stand by. What's in Craig's bucket?
It's the return of a classic. Alan loves it. It's time for the bucket game. A little reminder of why we do this. We thought this season on the podcast it would be a little bit doom and gloom. So we thought we'd add a little bit of fun at the end of each podcast to try and cheer us all up because we hadn't had anything to talk about. But lo and behold, we've had things to talk about and we've kept on doing it. Now, I was invited on, I don't know if I've mentioned this, to the It's All Cobblers to Me preview show last night, which I believe will be on their Patreon page and various other places very soon. I'll retweet it on X or whatever when the tag is in it. And we played the bucket game and it went down very, very well. And for the first time ever, I am going to repeat the same game with the same item that is in the bucket. So, Craig, for your benefit only, if you've not heard about this feature, you each have in turn 3 questions each, which I can answer only yes, no, or maybe, and give you a little bit of a helping hand along the way. And at the end of those 3 questions, you all get a guess as to what item is in Craig's bucket. Whoever guesses correctly will get a point on the games board. Now, as you are not a fully fledged full-time member of the podcast crew, you must nominate one player for you that you play for. The options being Nick of Mansfield Town shirts fame, Jim of I'm in Delay fame, or Cam of I'm watching Hollyoaks fame. Who are you going to nominate to play for on the podcast podcast games board?
I'll play for Nick, Mansfield Town fame shirts.
Oh, there you go. So Nick of Mansfield Town shirts fame in the form of Craig. You know how the game works. You've all got 3 questions each, yes, no, or maybe. Feel free to guess in the comments if you wish to do so. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of an additional clue this week because I did this on the Northampton podcast. It is Northampton and Mansfield Town themed within recent years. So it has a link, albeit tedious, between Northampton and Mansfield Town. And to go first this week, it's going to go in this order. It'll be Alan, Clive, then Craig, as Alan currently leads the way in the game stakes with 2 points, joint with Nick, but Nick's not here. So, Alan, you can go first. 3 questions each. Make them good one after the other. Alan, Clive, and then Craig. Let's play What's in Craig's Bucket?
Craig, when you rattle the bucket, does it make a really big sound?
Yes, but that's the handle of the bucket. Do you want to ask a different question?
No, he's had his question.
Okay, question wasted. Clive, it's yours.
Can you suck it?
I mean, technically you can, but it wouldn't taste very nice at all. Craig?
That's all I need to know.
Can you wear it?
Yes, you can. Alan?
Oh. Has it... is it warm?
I think it's got the potential to get warm after a while.
Is it longer than it is wide?
Hang on. I don't know.
Thank you.
Actually, yes. Depending on whether you've got a fat head or not. Speaking of which, Craig, it's over to you. That may have been a clue.
Do you wear it on the top half of your body?
Yes. Alan, final round of questions.
Does it have a bobble on the top of it?
Some do, some don't. This particular one has.
Would it be accurate to describe it as a woolly hat?
No, it would not. Craig, final question.
Can it cover your ears?
No, it cannot. So there you go. You've asked all of your questions. Like I said earlier, it has got a bit of a tenuous link to both Northampton and to Mansfield Town. But what will be in Craig's bucket? It's time to get your guesses in 3, 2, and play the theme song again. Here we go. As you are the guest, Craig, I'm going to let you get your guess in first. Craig, what's in Craig's bucket?
I've got no idea. I know I'm wrong. I'm going to go for a scarf.
Clive, what's in Craig's bucket?
A baseball cap.
Alan Wilson, what's in Craig's bucket?
I was going to go baseball cap, but I'm going to go wig.
Oh, I can tell you the closest person is Alan Wilson.
Oh.
Now, I am going to give you the opportunity. I'm going to give you 3 more clues. I'm going to give you the opportunity to have another guess. Clue number 1 is that it has a link between Mansfield Town and Northampton Town and somebody that used to wear a wig or could wear a wig or fans wore a wig to commemorate him. Clue number 2, he has been referenced in this show this evening. And
Yeah.
clue number 3, that's an improvement for Clive. And the third and final clue, which Clive's not listened to at all because he went to find his Scottish hat. The third and final clue was when he arrived, he was known for playing up front. When he departed, he was known for playing at the back. So there's your 3 additional clues. It links to that person. So, based on that, what's in Craig's bucket? Alan?
A John Joe O'Toole mask.
Clive?
John Joe's O'Toole's tool.
Craig?
John Joe O'Toole, and I think it was simply a spanner. No idea.
It's John Joe O'Toole's headband.
Oh, I was going to say that. No. Damn. I know
There
it
you
was
go.
something to do with O'Toole from the way you were talking originally.
Oh, there you go. It was John Joe O'Toole's headband. Clive is wearing some great headwear, which means he now can't hear us. And that is almost all we've got time for. Craig, it's been great to have you on the podcast tonight. We'll give the final word to you. Hopefully, we'll get you back on later in the season. Thanks for deputising tonight. What are you looking forward to over the next couple of months or so from Nigel Clough's side as we head into a busy October period?
I feel the same. I think the team are doing great. They're really pulling together as a team. I'd like to see us have a really good October, get some more points, and really get the injured players back. So yeah, more of the same, and let's stay mid-table in League One. And before I forget, Craig, again, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
An absolute pleasure having you on with us tonight. And my thanks also to Clive Parkin and to Alan Wilson for joining us this evening as well. Aaron Lewis may well have tamed the Shrews on Saturday afternoon against Shrewsbury Town. But now our focus turns to one other thing, and that is a trip to the Cobblers. The big question is, though, can Mansfield Town continue their winning run and make it 3 wins from 3, or will it be the Cobblers where the Stags take a little bit of a fall? If you want to have a guess, play along with podcast predictions, the link that you need is in the description. A reminder, you must do so no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff on Saturday afternoon. And of course, we'll be back here next week to recap a September, aka doing what Green Day do, wake up when September ends, and reflect on that and look ahead to October as well. Follow us on all things social media. We are at MTFC Matters. This is the show for the fans, by the fans. Why? Because Mansfield always matters, as do buckets. Hey lads, there's a hole in my bucket. Time to get it fixed. Good night.